Video released by Russian customs appears to show 31-year-old Griner going through airport security and an employee removing a package from her bag. Russian state media reporting that vape cartridges containing hashish oil were found. Griner was taken into custody, her detention extended until at least May. She could face up to a decade in a Russian prison if convicted on drug charges.
We don't know whether she actually did bring these, hash vaping items into Russia or not. The Russians are notorious for planting drugs and other things on Americans.
For weeks, these are the only images we've seen of WNBA superstar Brittney Griner, the 6'9" standout currently being held in Russia.
There are questions about the timing of Griner's arrest and whether Russia may try to use her as leverage.
I think it will backfire because, frankly, now more American sports fans and others are paying attention to the war in Ukraine and what President Biden is doing more than they would have otherwise. And holding a high-profile athlete under these what seems to be trumped-up charges isn't going to help Vladimir Putin make his case internationally either.
Back on February 17th, ESPN reported Russian authorities allegedly found vape cartridges in her luggage. This carries a sentence of a decade in prison.
The consular officer who visited with Brittney Griner was able to verify that she is doing as well as can be expected under these very difficult circumstances. We'll continue to work very closely with her legal team, with her broader network, to see to it that she is treated fairly and that her rights are respected.
Ned Price, spokesman for the U.S. State Department, addressing the media.
In our minds, it is our expectation that this not be a one-off visit. Again, we want timely, consistent access to American detainees in Russia, including those in pretrial detention. That would call for additional visits to Brittney Griner and to other Americans who are detained in Russia.
TJ Quinn, an investigative journalist with ESPN, spoke with NBC affiliate KARE11 in Minneapolis. The people around her, on the advice of the U.S. State Department, tried to keep it very low profile, said Quinn, who's been talking to people in the know about this from day one, and that advice he thinks is one of Griner's family and others close to her are taking. But why? What they want to see is how far can they get her with her attorneys in Russia to see if they can't resolve this in a low-key way before they need to turn up the pressure. Because the last thing they want is for Putin to decide, I'm going to hang on to her as long as I want until I get what I want, Quinn said. The publicly released details about Griner's case are sparse. This may be due to a desire by the U.S. government, the WNBA, and her family to keep matters quiet for strategic reasons or for other factors, such as racial disparities in missing persons coverage. But what we know doesn't support the theory that this is just a routine arrest, printed NBC. However, at the WNBA draft, Brittney Griner's name was invoked by many with one very simple message: bring her home. Engelbert addressed the media before the league's draft in New York and mentioned Griner, who was the league's #1 pick in 2013, right away in her opening remarks. ESPN's coverage featured much talk of her detainment, as it should, with coveted media member Holly Rowe doing a piece on a 7-time All-Star. Human rights lawyer Jasunia wrote, the timing is suspicious. Griner was detained in February during Russia's preparations to invade Ukraine. Then the news about her detention was concealed. Russia released the information only later, on March 5th, at one of the highest points of tension between the U.S. and Russia in decades. And Griner was purportedly denied consular access, a basic right of any foreign national in detention, until March 23rd. We also have no independent verification that the cannabis oil charges the Russians have leveled at her are true. Of note, Ben Siegel reported White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told Karen Travers, ABC News' White House correspondent, that Brittney Griner's family has not signed a privacy waiver to allow the administration to discuss her situation more freely, so there's that piece of information. Info on her condition continues to be sparse as the U.S. government navigates complicated diplomatic terrain with a Russian government that engages openly in human rights abuses, wrote Yahoo Sports' Jason Owens. Her detainment was reportedly extended last month until May 19th as the state continues its investigation. If found guilty on transportation of drug charges, she faces up to 10 years in prison. The U.S. government is now characterizing Brittney Griner's arrest in Russia as a wrongful detainment, an official designation that indicates it will no longer wait for the WNBA star's case to proceed through the Russian legal system and will take more aggressive steps to negotiate her release, wrote Dave Shenin and Cindy Boren of The Post. U.S. officials have shifted supervision of her case to a State Department section, the Office of the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs, that is focused on negotiating for the release of hostages and other Americans classified as being wrongfully detained in other countries. Brittney has been detained for 75 days, and our expectation is that the White House will do whatever is necessary to bring her home, said Griner's agent. Under a 2020 law, the determination by the U.S. that an individual is being wrongfully detained triggers more targeted efforts to free the prisoner, as the case is transferred from the State Department to the Special Envoy of Hostage Affairs. Not only will the case be officially reclassified, but the shift will allow WNBA players and other supporters to bring as much attention to Griner's case as they wish moving forward, according to ESPN's TJ Quinn. Previously, the player's personal team kept a low profile and adhered to State Department advice so as to not jeopardize her release. It was unclear what prompted the State Department shift and how it characterized Griner's case, news that was first reported Tuesday by ESPN. However, it came a week after the release of former U.S. Marine Trevor Reed in a prisoner swap with Russia. Reed had been held in Russia since August 2019. An unnamed official told ESPN that Griner is not considered a hostage, which would be a different legal classification. Specifically, via NBC News, the case will be handled by Roger Carstens, the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs, in coordination with the State Department's Office of Consular Affairs, the official said. We feel really good about the wrongful detainment classification, an unnamed source ESPN said is close to Griner told the network, but we also know it can drag out, so we don't want to get our hopes too high.